happy to be talking about Smith's debut album today, originally released February 20th, 1984. So, it's a big day for this album. It turns 40. Not to mention, it's probably my favorite album of all time. And I say this with years of consideration. A lot of information coming at you today, but it's with so much enthusiasm and inspired energy. As far as personal memories with this album, it really goes back quite a ways. I think I was first introduced to it when I was 16 or so. My TV broadcasting teacher, my mentor, gave me this very large stack of burned CDs. In fact, I still have a lot of those CDs, which is ironically what helped me re-engage with the Smiths after all these years. Of course, I kind of rifled through the bulk of the CDs, and the Smiths really grabbed my attention. I remember my late uncle buying this album for me, along with The Queen is Dead. Both of those LPs at Hot Topic, if you can believe that. When I found this in Hot Topic, I was like, I just have to get this no matter what. But he was nice enough, and he was so kind to me always, truly. But he was just nice enough to get me both, and listening to it in my room just again and again, and then learning the songs on guitar, on my acoustic guitar. I believe in those days, my therapist was nice enough to lend me his Martin acoustic guitar. I will never, ever forget that. I don't really play records anymore. I go to the CD. It's really nice to have this, though, especially because I have so many memories with it. And I can just remember so many amazing times just alone in my room with my Martin guitar and my microphone that I think I managed to hang it from one of the ceiling peaks or something. It just really felt like home, those moments, and just running those songs again and again. I absolutely loved it. And even more so specifically, the song Suffer Little Children, the guitar on that really captivated me. You have this dark subject material of real children going missing, the Moors murders and stuff in London and everything, but you have this extremely melodic and beautiful guitar by Johnny Marr overlaying those dark lyrics from Morrissey. And that, again, I talk about juxtaposition frequently, but it's sort of just the essence of what makes an interesting piece of music to me.
Over the moor, take me to the moor. Dig a shallow grave and I'll lay me down.
At one point I created a short film called Suffer Little Children that was loosely based off of the Moors murders and that song. That video is one of my biggest hits on my film channel. To this day, it's got the most views than anything else. And it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it was a real fun experiment, especially just some of those moments running and gunning, zero budget, working with child actors who really had never acted before, borrowing cars that literally were completely tweaking out at stoplights. When I think about it, a lot of it was kind of dangerous and stuff, but we live to tell the tale, and I'm really happy to share that memory as well. At Interlochen, before I made that film, I initially created a longer screenplay that was based off of this. In fact, it was a bit more true to the source material. It wasn't exactly a feature screenplay, but it was on its way, certainly adapting elements of noir filmmaking. A lot of dark themes there for sure. A lot of dark themes in this album for sure. Now, Interlochen was an academy. It was actually a high school, but I attended it after my original high school as a postgraduate to increase my GPA to get to a better college, more or less, right? Or just to have the experience itself, because Interlochen truly was just packed full of the best information in that 1 year of postgraduate school. So I would be playing these songs in the courtyard oftentimes, a lot of other Smith songs. I just loved sharing it Well, I'm sure not everyone else appreciated that. I'm not sure I would be so bold today to do something like that, even in college. I don't think I once brought out my guitar in like a public setting like that. But it did help me make some friends, it helped me meet some people, and it really just was like the essence of my musical interest at that time. I had played stuff for little children again when I formed a band called The Regulars, and I was singing and playing bass, and we were dressed up in different spooky costumes for Halloween and everything. This is a very Halloween album for sure. And that song really hits the nail on the head. Other songs from this album that really grabbed my attention are Miserable Lie, Pretty Girls Make Graves, Still Ill, but specifically The Hand That Rocks the Cradle was something that I have been covering for years and years and years. Since around the time I first heard it, I finally got a definitive cover of that I posted, I believe that was last year. And I'm really proud of that video. It was actually the first video for this channel.
I did my best for her. Please don't cry.
When I covered The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, I literally was basically covering that song for 2 days straight. My breaks were extremely minimal, and my focus was locked in. Now, of course, me repeating this makes me sound a little crazy, right? It's just a testament to the great music that is on this album. Originally, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle ended up being adapted into a screenplay at Interlochen as well, using the lyrics as a focus point to harness a short. That short script never ended up getting made, but I do have it, I believe. And I know that The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is also significant because I believe that was the first song that Morrissey and Johnny Marr sort of co-wrote together. So it was really the song that started everything, more or less, and ironically that's the song I really clung on to over the years. I did some busking in Pasadena during my college years, so I guess there was some of that. And I would play The Hand That Rocks the Cradle on those streets because it has just been so encased in my memory, something you could just play at any time. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle was certainly a song that I brought to the public, busking with friends, different friends. I would bring out the guitar, the acoustic in certain high school parties, small gatherings, bonfires and things, and we would just run that song over and over, and everyone had such a great time doing it. I'm so happy that I'm here for the 40th anniversary, and I'm hopefully bringing something to the table when I talk about these things. We all have our personal experiences, and I'm super happy to share mine. I mean, the memories go so much more beyond those few stories. I remember I made a really loose cover of Still Ill, and my friend and I, we made an impromptu music video. Just silly things, light things, but cinematic things in nature and capturing a sense of joy, especially looking back on that time. Yeah, it wasn't until years and years later that I would sort of rediscover the Smiths in a different light. At one point, a Smiths cover band, a local Smiths cover band, the Smiths United, they were looking for a guitarist. And, I'm granted not the best guitarist in the world, but because it was the Smiths, I was like, yes, let me try to wrap my mind around this, let me try to learn a handful of these songs. Genuinely, and I'm completely okay with everything that happened. They did end up going with someone else, which I completely understand. My audition did not really go that well, at least in my memory. Now, I had performed another song called Girl Afraid after the fact, as we had loose plans of a second audition, and I'd posted a video between the first and second audition, and it really nailed the guitar playing in Girl Afraid. But unfortunately, at that time, they were just going with someone else. And even at that time, I had no hard feelings. I think I was in a little over my head, just with all of the other things I was trying to do at the time. I had tried to form a Joy Division and New Order cover band in sort of reaction to what was happening with the Smiths United. But also, you know, it was happening simultaneously, so there was a lot of musical focus going in different directions, and with creating original music, but I digress. Wow. My latest resurgence with the Smiths came up on that trip I mentioned in the last video. It was just a long-delayed personal vacation. I ended up going to a few different Airbnbs in northern Michigan, and these places were very much in the middle of nowhere. And I just remember grabbing a couple CDs that happened to be Smiths live CDs from my very original discovering of them back in high school, and just really connecting with those CDs, those songs. Yeah, I was completely enthralled by the music and the lyrics, and just really discovering new meaning within these lyrics, really empathizing with the lyrics, and really just feeling the strength and melody of the guitar, and again finding that beautiful juxtaposition. Yeah, and since then, I've pretty much been listening to them nonstop, performing covers, buying their CDs, listening, just really listening, discovering new songs that I hadn't appreciated before, and new parts of songs that I had appreciated before. Basically, here we are today. The songs that I've covered on YouTube took a lot of work, pushing the limits to what I thought I could even do, both vocally and musically on the guitar. And then some of those songs I did both at the same time without even using the looping pedal. So that pretty much catches us up to speed when it comes to the personal experiences I've had with this album. It really just catapulted me into the band itself. And it's sort of interesting because This Charming Man appears on different versions of this. You can see on the back here that it's not actually on here, right? This Charming Man was originally released after this album on Hatful of Hollow as the John Peel take of it, the John Peel mix of it, which is great. It wasn't until years later on the reissue that they decided to add This Charming Man back, which is what I have on the CD, and I'm really grateful and thankful it's there. There's a lot of heavy, dark themes in this album, though the music doesn't always reflect that. This Charming Man is a very obvious, positive pop punctuation amid this indie debut. So I can see why they didn't put it on certain issues of it, but I also can appreciate that they did. In the US, the LP and cassette, and the UK cassette only had This Charming Man. Note that it did not appear on the UK LP release. It appears as the first song on side B of the original US LP release. The first UK CD release in 1986 did not include the song, though all UK CD re-releases since 1993 include it. All US CD releases include the song. Okay, so there you go. There's the definitive answer. Originally, this album was recorded by Troy Tate, and those mixes sound much more raw and rough and heavy compared to the producing on this album, which is significantly more clean. I'll give you a comparison. This was produced by John Porter, and those Tate demos never actually got released. After they had recorded the Tate demos, when the Smiths were unsatisfied with that, they went to John Porter. Those Tate outtakes include some songs that didn't get released on either the Smiths' debut or Hatful of Hollow. Okay, so on the channel I have covered in order here Miserable Lie, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Still Ill, I Don't Owe You Anything, and Suffer Little Children. I have attempted, but did not release, You've Got Everything Now, Pretty Girls Make Graves, and then This Charming Man as well. Reel Around the Fountain seems like something I would have attempted, but I never really did. Hand in Glove, never really got that into that one. Probably my least favorite on the album. And then What Difference Does It Make? I kind of came full circle to. I'm definitely inspired to cover that one, especially after hearing the different versions of it. Appeal Sessions really took it to a whole new level with that song, as well as Miserable Lie. This was released through Rough Trade Records, as you might know. Yeah, it looks like the only single from the album was What Difference Does It Make? Which makes sense. Looking back at it from an older point of view, I feel like that was also one of the songs that I kind of just looked over when I was first discovering them, but let's see, it peaked at the US Billboard 200 at 150, and then UK albums number 2. It has a UK gold certification. That's certified units of sales above 100,000. The Peel sessions that I mentioned were recorded before the album was recorded, I believe. Yeah, and then Hatful of Hollow was released that same year in November. So they were really on top of their release game, I think. The producers behind this and the musicians themselves, not to mention, of course, Andy Rourke, rest in peace. I think something that's interesting to note is that even on Rough Trade's website, you can't even buy this on CD. It's LP only, I believe. Yes, but you can buy Hatful of Hollow for $9.99, which is actually an amazing deal. Another interesting note is that, though we're coming up on its 40th birthday, there is no deluxe version of this available, no collector's edition, nothing like that. They did come out with the Queen is Dead deluxe version pretty recently. This was, 2017, Jesus. It's not recent at all. Okay, so it's a 3 CD release that includes a DVD. And I think you also get a 5 LP vinyl option. Right, so we get the original album, 2017 remaster, and then we have demo versions and extended versions, outtakes, B-sides on disc 2. Then disc 3 is a live CD previously unreleased, live in Boston. And that looks like it's got a couple of really great tracks on it, so this is probably something I'm going to be tracking down and most likely buying. For those live recordings, I'm sure they sound absolutely incredible on this official release as well. But yeah, what I find interesting is that they never released a deluxe version of the Smiths' debut album from 1984. Especially coming onto 40 years, I mean, you really would think now is the time to do that. But I don't know, maybe the Queen is Dead reissue deluxe edition didn't sell very well, so maybe that's why they stopped. They never made any other deluxe editions. At the end of the day, they have a lot of great music available, and so much of their songs are replayable. I don't want to complain or sound negative. I do appreciate the physical media that I have of the Smiths more than anything, more than any other piece of music. You really have to credit the songwriters, the musicians, the producers, and not to mention the fantastic artwork. You know, this is a still from Andy Warhol's Flesh, I think it was 1968, and this is Joe D'Alessandro, I think that's how you say it. He appeared in other Andy Warhol films at that time, like Blood for Dracula, Andy Warhol's Frankenstein. Yeah, this trio of films, Flesh, Trash, Heat. But yeah, this image always sort of captivated me. I tried to emulate this image in a film called Dreams Never End, which I actually won an award for. It's right on my desk here. All these covers are taken from these movies from the 60s. They're taking these stills and then doing a color effect on them. You can see this magenta, burgundy coloring right here. Sometimes it looks more magenta, sometimes it looks more mauve, I guess, or burnt mauve, burgundy. But it's just funny because they take an image and reproduce it, and then you take their reproduced image and reproduce that. It's like this endless echo chamber. I've always really appreciated and respected their artwork method. I've said that before and I'll probably say it again, but one of my first bands, or at least the first band that I took seriously, it was pretty much myself. I called myself Winnie at that time, and I tried to emulate their 1960s mock-up art pieces as well for a bit there, until I moved on to other names and other territory and such. But certainly inspiring stuff, you guys, just so inspiring. I could talk about the Smiths and this album all day long, but I do think a lot of this video was personal stories for sure, without getting into the track order or the themes too much or the music too much. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for your patience and sort of just hearing me out. For someone my age, being in their early 30s, it's sort of uncommon to find a lot of people with my shared affinity for the Smiths. A lot of the times you'll find slightly older people who more or less grew up with this music when it came out. Yeah, I mean, chances are you might not even know that many Smiths songs or anything, but I do highly recommend going to this album any way you can. If that's listening to it on Spotify, you know, to kind of check it out. That's all good and stuff. But if you're a fan of the Smiths, I do recommend buying the album, the CD specifically. When I listened to that in my car, I mean, I literally heard things that I'd never heard before, and this was on songs that I had played I don't know how many hundreds of times, just listening to it and then also performing them, covering them. It's just utterly amazing, and I'm happy to share my enthusiasm with you all. I'm going to link everything below: Hatful of Hollow, John Peel Sessions, this CD, this LP, pretty much everything that I've talked about in this video today, including my short films that I've made and my covers that I've made. It's going to be a lot of links down below, so you're going to want to check that out for sure, or you can click on these boxes and links above me. I'm so happy to be celebrating the Smiths' debut album today. I hope that you get a chance to rock out to some of this music and really just crank it. Yeah, it's honestly just some of my all-time favorite music in this little album right here. I can't recommend it enough, and again, I thank you.